we not yawn in the recording?
Hey, thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Caitlin.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering it from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we are going to the mountains of China and then to the depths of Diyu?
Mm-hmm.
Yes! This is the second time I think I've ever actually gotten a word right by looking at it. I'm very proud. Published on March 27th, 2018, Reflection is the first book after a 1.5-year break and the first entry in the Twisted Tale series by Elizabeth Lim. I am so sorry if I get that wrong.
I think Lim.
But did the break and new author give the book what it needed to truly represent Mulan? Or does it fall short like the ones before? So I love Mulan. She's definitely very up there on my princess favorites.
I think people don't think that I like Mulan because I will argue someone into the ground that she's not actually a princess, but I do love Mulan as well.
Yeah, Disney rules are interesting because you don't have to be a princess to actually be a Disney princess. It's very interesting.
Yeah, she's in their lineup of main female characters and stuff, but
yeah, because Tinkerbell was a princess until they went and did the origin movies. And then something in it changed and it's like, oh, you're not a princess anymore.
I've never considered Tinkerbell a princess.
Yeah, like I said, being a princess does not mean you are not a Disney princess. It's weird.
Yes, but I love Mulan too. The movie slaps. The music is fantastic. It's always been such a good one. And even I think people have said too, like Mulan actually did okay with the sequels. Mulan 2 was actually shockingly good.
I liked it.
Yeah, compared to other princess sequels that have Disney's done before.
So my favorites were probably somewhere between Ariel and Mulan until Tiana came along. So she's pretty up there. So we're still in the age level YA, young adult, still writing for the youth.
Yeah, whole time. They're all rated YA.
Content warning, shocker, she's not as dark as Liz Braswell.
Yeah.
Because all we have is blood, death of a parent, death of a child, and graphic violence. That is all.
I mean, there were hallucinations in there.
Yeah, but not in a traumatic way. I guess you could say gaslighting.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't put demons on here. I'm not a big demon fan.
Yeah, but they weren't demon monster, like describing them as monsters and stuff. I don't think it would be triggering, personally.
Yeah, it's not how that works.
I have a list of general trigger warnings, and I've never seen anyone be like, just so you know, demons. Possession is something that people are like, hey, possession's in here.
I would personally love if there were demon trigger warnings because that scares me literally all the time. Happens way too often.
Do these demons scare you? Because they just seem like people.
Well, it's the whole twisted souls kind of thing. That in and of itself to me is very creepy. Either way, but yes, overall, even with the fight scenes, not as graphic, not as dark, not as heavy as the other books, which is shocking because of all the stories of the other books. Beauty and the Beast may have been the one that had the potential to get the darkest until Mulan. You could have done Mulan pretty dark.
She literally goes to the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Elizabeth does really well about managing to keep the seriousness of the story together, but also be like, hey, the movie was a cartoon.
Fair.
So it's like how in the movie there was that one guy that was headless and he just carried his head around because he was a soldier.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good.
And it wasn't scary like Headless Horse. It was a cartoon.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think she keeps that pretty well. Judge a book by its cover. So this is the first time we've had the heroine on the cover instead of the villain. Mainly because now that I've read the book, there's not a villain per se. There's an antagonist, two technically, but not really a villain.
Yeah, well, and I mean, with the Beauty and the Beast one, I would argue that the Beast isn't the villain or even the antagonist of the book.
No, but he starts out, oh, he's going to be the villain.
Yeah, at no point do we think that Mulan/Ping is going to be a villain.
Yeah. Shan Yu is the villain in the movies, but they start the book with killing him, so...
No, he didn't die. Remember? You even have in your outline that he was not in DU. It was very similar to how the movie went down. He disappeared appeared and she didn't see him, but it wasn't clear that he died.
True. I thought that was going to come up more, so I literally forgot about that.
I did too. I really thought like, oh, the final battle. Yeah, no. The antagonist that definitely was the god of the underworld.
Yeah, so I forgot about that because the book starts and it's the scene with the avalanche, and then the book ends and they're marching to the Capitol. So he never comes up again.
Yeah, you don't get that resolution that the movie gives you because, again, the plot of this book is about moving into the next section. The question. It was a pretty good question, but it's more along what if Shang dies? Basically what they're threatening. He wasn't in any danger of dying in the movie.
It's what if Shan Yu sliced Shang instead of Mulan, which I don't know how you could put that on a cover.
Yeah, it's not very spicy.
Well, it's not that so much spicy, but how would you be like, hey, Disney, what if someone was killed on the cover? And granted, we've seen some disturbing stuff, but the cover?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're much more uptight about. I think what if Mulan went to the underworld is the perfect question.
I do too. It was a good.
Can we talk about how I'm so glad Elizabeth Lim does this book and not Liz Braswell?
Yeah, it was really good. And I even made the comment too. She narrated the book because I listened to the audiobook.
Ooh, that's nice.
A, so thankful that it was a woman narrating. And then B, I realized in prepping for the episode that it was actually just narrated by her. So I think that lended itself to her being able to really know the scenes and what scenes should sound like with her characters.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, spoiler, not spoilers. I liked this book so much that I went and found her original books, and they are now on my to-be-reads. I love this book. 5 stars. First 5 stars. Let me get my bias out there immediately.
Yeah, she did a good job.
Thank heavens for this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so excited because she also writes the Cinderella one, and I also really like Cinderella. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Save my favorites.
Yeah, the next book she writes isn't until...
It's Cinderella.
Is it Cinderella? Wow, dang. 2 years later.
I think she writes the Tiana book. Let me double check. No, it's the When You Wish Upon a Star. And she also has some stuff in the anthology that's coming out. Oh dear, wait, who's doing Tiana? Please don't be Liz Braswell.
I know Little Mermaid is going to be Liz.
Yep, that's next.
Oh, it's a new author, Farah Roshan.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll take a chance on a new author.
Sure.
I love Tiana. She and Moana take up my favorite princess currently.
See, I really like Tangled, so...
It's good. I don't know if I clicked as much with it as other princesses, but we'll get to that when we actually get to those books.
Oh, but Tangled is Liz. Oh, no. Okay. Well... I'm sorry. This is such a side tangent. Now we're looking at the authors trying to figure out, oh, who's writing our books? But this book was good.
This is good.
I would not give it 5 stars because I think we've earlier established 5 is perfect book, no flaws.
Well, I don't know if it's no flaws, only because I don't think any book can be no flaws, but I love it. Despite the flaws, I love it so much.
Yeah, it's good.
And I would recommend it to people / buy it for people.
Yes, definitely.
4 stars is I really enjoyed it, but there's definitely some room for improvement. But 5 stars is I will buy this for people. And I would totally buy this for people.
This one was really good.
But yeah, so it starts out the avalanche scene, which I think she does really good. And the switch is that instead of Shang Yu slicing Mulan, he slices Shang instead. So he gets really sick with infection. And so Mulan's kind of freaking out, being like, oh my gosh, he's going to die. And there was a really cute joke where Mushu was like, clearly he needs true love's kiss to save him from dying.
A nod to what they always do.
I see you, Disney, with your true love's kisses. That was very cute. I will say I'm surprised how little we see of Mushu.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting because Mushu is one of the best parts about the film. But at the same time, I was kind of glad that we got, for the future stuff, we got a new Guardian. That's what it is. Because it would have been hard because I feel like she would have been pigeonholed with who and what Mushu is.
Yeah, because he's kind of a comedic relief. And I kind of like it because we see what she was supposed to get. Because I didn't really understand, especially as a kid, what a stone guardian meant. And so she gets to meet the Lee family. And so they get a stone guardian who's a lion. And so you kind of get to know what she was supposed to get with the stone dragon. But his name is Shishi, and I love him.
Which I'm here for. I want a plushie of this dragon. 100%. I need it in my life.
I love it. He's super cocky and proud of himself. And it's such a good foil. I love it.
Yeah, it was a good balance.
But he also has his wise moments, but then he also has his pretentious moments where he's like, I am going to do this thing because I am always right. Does it wrong.
Yeah, it was great. He was a really good little character. I will say from right off the bat, something that you always lose, and especially book to movie adaptations, is the inner dialogue of a character. And so it was super interesting getting that with this. All of them to some extent, right? Like we get to start seeing what does that constant internal monologue sound like for the character. I will say at first, I kind of was surprised at how unsure and how much anxiety they were putting on to Mulan's character. But then I look back on it and I'm like, no, that's appropriate. You're constantly worried about being outed, but also balancing that need to do her duty and protect her country and bring honor to her family. So much hinges on that. So I just really loved Mulan's inner dialogue and getting to hear that in this.
Oh, Mulan's a complete anxiety ball. That's the reason Mushu is there. He's there to be the comic relief foil. Otherwise, the movie would be way too serious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely needed. But in a book like this, you get so much inner monologue. I thought that was really cool to kind of get that from Mulan. I really liked that.
Yeah, I like how the author was able to really tap down into what her anxiety was about, because I feel like you could have really easily messed it up, but she really takes the time to flesh the issue out throughout the book about her anxiety of wanting to be a woman, but wanting to be a soldier, and how those two things don't have to be separate things. And to truly accept herself, she needed to accept both sides of herself, that she wants to be feminine, but she also wants to have masculine hobbies. So I don't think it's necessarily so much like I want to be a man as much as I want to be a woman, but I still want to be an engineer or a software programmer or a mechanic, kind of like that.
Yeah, I know I'm a woman, but I want to do all the stereotypical man things.
I can wear lipstick and change brake pads.
Yeah, and you're right. Kind of on the whole levels of DU thing, they get down to a lot of her behavior, where she's coming from comes down to things she just wants to make her parents proud. And the connection that they made, I don't know if this is in your notes later, but the connection that they made when Shang is questioning her and she has the thought of how her grandfather gave her little brother, her dog. Watching the movie literally never made that connection that her dog is called little brother because she's the only girl and she's the only kid. And I'm like, that hurts me. That attacked me. And I felt really bad.
Right? Because in the movie, they're just like, little brother. And so I thought it was one of those names where you call them in a different language and it makes sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. And I'm sure that was actually canon when they made the movie.
Yeah, but I never connected it watching the movie.
No. Is so great. Anyway, so he's about to die and Mulan's trying to tend to him and do stuff. And of course, the terrible advisor for the emperor is like, leave him to die.
Yeah, that was bonkers.
That dude, I could see it though. He's just the worst. So Mulan's like, no. And she tries to nurse him back to health. And one night they're in camp and she sees his father's ghost, which is super weird because, seeing ghosts. But Mulan is basically like, I want to help. What can I do? I want to help my friend here. And the dad's like, I am going to send you our stone guardian and you guys are going to figure this out. And then the stone guardian shows up and he's like, okay, to the underworld with us. Huzzah!
Yeah, we got into it really fast. This was something I noticed in this book versus the other ones. I felt like in the other books, we were doing the play-by-play of the movie for so much longer.
Yes.
This one, within the first chapter, the change is immediate. It's Shang that gets hurt versus Mulan. And you are just going down the different path basically immediately. And I really liked that.
Yeah, it assumes the audience is somewhat competent and has seen the movie, and so she doesn't do anything more than necessary. She had to do the avalanche scene because that was when the change was, and so that is the only retelling you have.
Yeah, we didn't need the setup of her and Shang's relationship.
Or starting at the beginning and being like, oh, Mulan needs to be a soldier, and retelling the story up to that point, and then halfway through the book getting to the change.
Very much in media res. Okay, you guys know what's happened up into this point, but here's where the difference is going to be. And it also is something that feasibly could have happened in the movie too. Shang was obviously in distress when Mulan ran away. I wish I could have had time to watch the film, but it's just that one change. He comes after her instead of letting her stay out there by herself. That's it.
Yep.
And then that change led the rest of the book versus a bunch of different intricate changes.
Yeah, I appreciated that.
The simplicity.
It really got things going, which is nice because we got to really get into the underworld, which was fun because I know nothing about the Chinese underworld.
Nothing.
Now I know significantly more.
Assuming that this is actually based on real Chinese religious lore, I'm not 100% sure. Did not double check.
True. I would be really shocked if the author didn't at least pull from Chinese lore. This is really in depth for I have probably 3 months to write this book.
That's fair.
So they go into DU and there is a little bit of a funny moment where she pulls it through and it's, oh, you should throw up because you know you went through space-time. You basically went through this little wormhole, got really compressed and whatever. And Mulan's like, I haven't thrown up. And I think it was she actually that it's like, hey, you're not like most men. Most men would have thrown up. And I'm pretty sure it was just because she's barely eaten. So she ate enough where it's like, oh, I don't have an empty stomach, so I'm not throwing up stomach acid, but not enough for her to actually throw up. So it was very funny.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, you're so strong, when in reality it was probably just good circumstances. But yeah, so first of all, they almost get attacked by demons, which there's a color system.
Yeah, which you find out about later. They explain the color system of the ghost. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And I think there's also a color system for the demons. They are different colors, but I don't know if they mean something specific. Anyway, they almost get attacked by demons and whatnot. And they're like, hey, we need to go talk to... Gosh dang it. I also did not write it down. Come on, I had to have written down the characters.
Oh, the king, you mean? It's King Yama.
King Yama. I did not write him in the characters. Wow. Yikes. Oops. He's a character for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, they convince him to let him go into the underworld and talk to King Yama, even though she's alive. And they get there, and it's so funny.
100%.
This is the cartoon moments that I kind of love. They get there, there's a long line, and it's way too long. She could die before this line went through. And so they're basically cutting line, walking by it, being like, whatever, trying to get to him. And they see some of her comrades, but then they see some people that are like, oh my gosh, they're cutting! And a huge rebel thing ensues. And Shishi had his moment of, oh, we're above you kind of moment. And then King Yama yells, demands order in this really booming voice. And everyone gets back in line, including Mulan and Shishi.
Yeah. They're like, oops, my bad.
I could see the cartoon, whoop, right back in line. So they get brought to the front of the line because they're like, hey, this is weird. You guys are causing issues and stuff. And King Yama's basically like, leave.
Bye.
I don't want to deal with you, basically. But Mulan manages to convince him to let her bet her soul for Shang's. And so basically she has a night in DU terms because time runs differently, but she has a night in DU to rescue Shang and bring him back to the top because it's kind of like Layers of Hell, except 100.
Yeah. And actually I briefly looked up a little bit of the Chinese mythology just to see kind of what was different. And I briefly saw that there's a whole 10 magistrates of hell, which is interesting because that's much more similar to the Western Christian religion. But yeah, there's 100 levels of hell of the underworld, and it was kind of wild.
So that's our setup. Mulan is now in the underworld. So first she has to find him.
Yep, which they immediately get knowledge of through Dad.
Yeah, because the first thing they start with is the bamboo forest, and the dad is hiding because he's supposed to go to heaven. Because either you go to heaven, you get reincarnated, or you have to stay in DU until your soul is pure and you're allowed to go to heaven / get reincarnated.
Yeah.
So he's hiding because he's supposed to go to heaven because he was so good. And so he's like, I want to help you. And so he's hiding in the bamboo forest as a weird thing of bamboo.
Yeah, like a crunched over husk of bamboo or something like that. And she's like, oh, I need to give him a cane. What? That's so random.
And it worked.
It did.
I don't know. Weird ghost challenges. But he's like, hey, Shang is in the Tower of the Last Glance to Home, which is basically like I get to look over my life before I get reincarnated. or before you go to heaven. I don't know.
Because he had already set Shang aside for reincarnation because he knew Shang was great and he didn't get enough time.
Yeah.
Because I think when Mulan was arguing with King Yama was like, he will have another opportunity to protect the emperor. And she's like, but he has to do it now. He can't do it later. And I thought the whole idea that's so interesting of someone sitting basically, right, like before they're reincarnated and they get the chance to relive their life, because we make jokes, but a lot of the whole thing of like deja vu or people who talk about they remember glimpses from their past lives and all that kind of stuff, and how the mechanism in this is that you're supposed to drink a forgetting tea and it's like, oh, but that one memory slipped through or something like that. Like, I just thought that was such a subtle way to bring in some of those things that we see and we talk about on a day-to-day basis, like deja vu.
So they really fast get to the bottom of DU. Before they even meet Shang, they're already at level 79. Super fast for them to get down.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to the levels at all. They climb the mountain and go up later and they raise 20 levels? What?
Yeah, and then sometimes they'll do some stuff and they'll get up one level.
Yeah.
This could be a video game. This could be a great video game.
You're not wrong.
So they finally get low enough to finally find Shang, and she has to convince him first to be like, hey, we should try this, instead of being like, hey, you should be reincarnated. So it takes Mulan Ping, quote unquote, a bit, but she's able to convince him, and he's like, cool, let's do this. And then the tower crumbles and they just fall into a void. He's a ghost right now. And so I was like, this is where I have ghost and gravity questions. How does a ghost fall through a hole? But they talk about that. It takes a while for them to learn how to fly. It's a new skill. I am very happy.
Yeah. And they do kind of try to establish the laws of physics in there, because they're like, oh, ghosts can't touch anything that's not meant to be in DU or that's not supposed to be there. Hence why he can't touch Mulan.
Yes.
But he can interact with other things. And that ends up being a big thing later. I was glad that they established that information at some point.
I'm very happy because I feel like it very easily could have been looked over.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thankfully, she lands on Shishi, so she's not dead. Because she can die in this place. She absolutely could die.
Yeah, totally.
And that's the thing. If she doesn't get him out, she has to remain in DU as a demon. Because apparently the demons were the worst. Because there are levels with the ghost.
Yeah.
If they're red, they're going to spend a really long time in DU because they were really bad. And then orange, yellow, green, and blue?
Yeah, I think so. I remember at some point there was a line about how demons are, like you said, the worst of the worst. They're the people who killed their family or killed the emperor. Then later, right, there's these legions of demons running after them. And I'm like, y'all, how many people you got murdering your own family or the emperor in your history to have this many demons? That's a lot of people.
I think it's the whole world.
Well, I mean, I guess that's fair if you're not just talking about...
What dynasty is this? What dynasty is Mulan set in?
I don't think it's ever established. I guess that's fair. I wasn't thinking about it from the whole world. I was thinking about it from Chinese culture.
So they based it on a Chinese tale.
Yeah.
It looks like around the founding of the Tang Dynasty, which is 620 current era. So yeah, you got an entire BC and then 600 years of the current era for people to be terrible. Because that's the thing. You meet bandits and murderers that are still ghosts. And then the demons are a step above that.
Yeah. I remember having the thought, wait, so if you're telling me that the demons are the people, like you said, the worst of the worst, because I want to say they specifically mentioned killing family or killing the emperor. And I'm like, dang, that's a lot of folks. That's a lot of demons. Because at one point when they're escaping the grandma character, they literally say like that was over 100 people. And then later when they're facing the fire demon, they're standing on piles of bones. I'm like, what the heck?
Yes.
But you're right. It is, I guess, if you're thinking the whole of creation and time, maybe.
Yeah. So Ming Po is the shapeshifter that pretends to be an old lady for most of the book.
Yeah.
So they're at like level 100 to begin with, now that the tower crumbled. Also a little heart-to-heart where she feels bad that General Lee dies. I love that all of the characters are their own thing.
Yes.
And they have their own thoughts and desires and wants. And while they're all working for the same purpose, they don't feel like something for the main character to interact with. They feel really fleshed out.
Exactly. I loved Mulan and Shishi's early interactions. We kind of breezed past that. Him explaining the Guardians, like you said, it really helps us with this understanding. I think he even makes a comment at first when he's very skeptical of her. He's like, well, what did your ancestors believe of you if they didn't send you your great stone dragon to protect you? You must be a wimp, basically. And I was like, oh, dang, that's rude. But then, he talks about how he takes a lot of pride in how he is part of what brought the Lee family up into this esteemed purpose. And he's been with 5 generations of great generals and military soldiers and all this kind of stuff. He does have this abundance of pride. And then he's like, I'm so ashamed because not only didn't stop General Lee from dying, I couldn't get to his son before his son was killed.
Yeah.
And he holds so much shame in that. And it was just, it was very good writing.
So they managed to get to the bottom of the well. And then the way they get out, specifically Mulan, is through a bucket.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a crappy bucket. How is this holding a human's weight right now?
Yeah, I thought that was like the room of requirement, or in Star Trek, the rooms that you're in that are completely simulated. My husband would be so disappointed that I don't remember what that's called. But where it's like, oh man, we're at the bottom of a well. We need a way out. Well, wait, aren't wells supposed to have buckets? And then all of a sudden there's a bucket next to you. It's manifesting around you what you need to get done kind of thing. That's kind of the vibes that it was giving me.
I could see that. We get a rickety old bucket that manages to hold over 100 pounds of something.
Oh, easily. Yeah. I mean, that lion alone.
Oh my gosh, lion is so heavy.
Yeah, very heavy boy.
So they get out of that. They're in this beautiful area with flowers, and there's a pavilion, and an old lady comes out and hits Shishi over the head with a bronze spade.
Yeah.
This is how we're introduced to Ming-Po, but we don't know if she's Ming-Po yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's like, oh, you're on the 100th level, which I think is the farthest down.
No. You're getting it confused. The throne room is on the 100th level.
Oh.
It's bottom to top.
Oh, okay. The reverse.
Yeah.
It's like a building.
Yeah, except you come in on the 100th level and not the first.
Yes. So she takes them to the pavilion and is just being really chill and nice and whatever, and makes them tea.
Yep.
And I was immediately like, do not drink the tea, because I remembered they mentioned the forgetting tea. And so Mulan figures it out first, that Ming-Po is a lady of forgetfulness. And I was very proud of myself for figuring that out. But also, this woman's dedicated. Her dedication to her job, phenomenal.
Yeah, she does a really great job.
Employee of the month every month.
And I'll say, from beginning to end, did not expect her plot twist towards the end.
Yeah.
And again, this comes back to the writing. You are warned about the lady of forgetfulness from the dad, from Captain Lee, early on. But because there's movement from the tower to here, in your brain wants to think about it logically, like, okay, well, the lady of forgetfulness has to be near the tower, but obviously they left the tower space when the tower crumbled. So she can't be near. She's probably not a threat right now, blah, 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 right? They really do kind of catch you with your guard down with her. And then all of a sudden, oh, nope, the vapors are making me dizzy and forgetful.
Yeah, this woman's committed. And cue the fun dance of not drinking the tea, but not looking like she's drinking the tea.
Yeah, throw it over my shoulder.
While they're not looking. Okay, so they're on the 24th floor. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But then at one point it comes to a head and Mulan throws the whole pot at Ming-Po and smashes Shishi's cup, because I think Shishi was about to drink, or he had drunk a little. Oh, sorry. It's so much. So Shishi gets tied up in a tree upon the escape, and then demons start coming out of the pond, which I personally didn't think that was scary. I don't know if you thought that was scary. We have warned about demons now.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit.
Felt like the swamp creature, kind of.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
And it introduces that she is obviously not like the other ghosts. Like, she is a creature of DU, right? Like, she is something that has power down here.
I'm not like other ghosts.
Yeah, she's not just a passive ghost. She is obviously a creature that has some sort of power, because she can call forth the legion of demons to them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And they can't kill all of them because there's like a bunch. So they just get the trees to cling onto them, which I'm kind of surprised that works, because I thought Ming-Po controlled the environment, but I guess not.
Yeah, Yeah.
Those trees are extra persnickety.
This whole sequence was a little bit of, there was a lot going on. And since things weren't, I guess, explicitly explained, it gave you kind of that loosey-goosey to be like, oh, well, no, they're able to also manipulate their environment to get the environment to do what they need.
Kind of lucid dreaming.
A little bit, yeah.
So at some point she picked up the bronze spade and is using that as a weapon, but she loses it pretty soon after this area.
Yeah.
And so at this point, she's lost her father's sword. That's still in the main world. And then she finally gets this spade and she drops that. And she just can't keep weapons to save her life. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when they introduce the River of Hopelessness. And so that is like a river that runs through, but if you go into it, it's kind of like depression and despair, that. And so they're not strong enough to handle it.
Yeah, it kind of gave me River of Styx vibes, you know, kind of thing. This is something that's here. You definitely don't want to be in it, but it's not insta-death if you go in.
And I was being cheeky because they were like, oh, we can't do the river, so we'll have to do that mountain over there, which is made of pointy knives. And so I called it, being a little cheeky, Mountain of Pointy Knives. And it is actually called Mountain of Knives.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, look at that graveyard. That's no graveyard. It's daggers. And I'm like, what? What is happening? And then, oh, no, this is where all the thieves and bandits and blah, blah, blah go. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, they're able to take advantage of an earthquake to get the demons to stop following them. But apparently there's a workaround. So they have to very quickly go up the Mountain of Knives. And Mulan has to do it with an injured ankle that she sustained previously. So she kind of makes coverings for her feet and hands because it's literally a mountain of knives with the pointy bits out.
Yeah, knives, blades pointed out, which, I mean, to some extent, I kind of like how she did it. Let me put the flats of the knives on my feet and hands, and that'll give me some sort of surface. But also, if you're grabbing the knives to scale up, I don't know. That's a really hard thing for me to picture in my head. I would love to see someone take a shot at animating that because I cannot conceptualize that in my head.
I would love to know the physics behind it, personally.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get up there, getting the protective stuff on there. The demons show up again because, of course, they did.
Yeah.
So Mulan's trying to go up. They're throwing javelins. Shishi decides that he needs to stop them because she keeps getting almost impaled by, one, the mountain, and two, these javelins thrown by these demons. And so Shishi jumps off because he's such a good guardian.
I know. It was so much. I get why you're risking your life and basically gonna martyr yourself. But at the same time, I was like, there's still so much story left. You're telling me you martyred this lion right here at the beginning? They did not. Spoilers.
Nope.
He comes back.
Personally unsurprising.
Yeah.
So they finally get to the top of the mountain, thanks to Shishi. And I was just like, girl, grab a weapon, but frankly, grab several at the rate that you're losing them right now.
Yeah, which she did.
Oh, she does. She gets a sword and she actually manages to keep it. It's a really nice sword with her family name inscribed on it.
Because it's an important sword. I knew that from the beginning. Once we got to that point, I was like, oh, that's why she can't keep a hold of her weapons, because they were saving her for this weapon.
This specific one.
And then, of course, we know, you see the line, the flower that blooms in adversity, right? Like, that's something from the films that her dad tells her after the fact, right? So like, oh, of course she's supposed to have this weapon, you know, it's meant for her.
Yeah, and there's also ghosts on this mountain that are bandits, and they're like, we're bored, let's kill people, because they're not really trying to get out of DU.
Yeah.
But you learn that these are all the weapons from murderers or bandits that have passed on. And so you have that quote that you mentioned, and even then I was like, that's a really nice quote for a bandit or murderer.
Yeah, which we understand why eventually.
We understand why later, but it was just like,
Yeah, that's a little too...
It was my first hint, because first of all, it was very convenient. It has her family's name, and it has this very nice quote. And I was like, something's weird with this. Anyway, so they keep going. There's some dramatic irony where Shang admits that he needs to find a bride.
This was hilarious. I had secondhand embarrassment and was laughing. Oh, this is good.
And Ping pretends like he has a sister, which is Mulan. So he kind of tells her, I was like, oh, Mulan, kind of talking about herself. And so he's like, so tell me about your sister. Is she? And Ping is just like, I finished wrapping my ankle.
Yeah, so Shang has the realization that now because his father has died, he has to step up and do the part of the family to get married, which he did not want to do beforehand and it wasn't pressuring. And so he's like, well, dang it. Now I'm going to have to get married, but I never liked any of the women that they threw through at me. And I thought it was a great moment of her calling him out on his assumptions, because on the one hand, he's like, I didn't like them. They were all airheads. No one could hold a conversation. But then when they start talking about qualities in a woman that he wants, and he's like, yeah, but women can't fight. What are you talking about? And I'm like, my man, you got to pick a side. So I really appreciated them showing that. And again, this goes back to like why I loved so much hearing her inner monologue, because she's sitting there trying to be like, women can fight too. And he's like, absolutely not. And she's like, oh, if only he knew. And I'm like, yeah, my man, if only you knew.
Yikes, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do like how there's that misogyny, because it's like, oh, women are basically lesser, but then being like, I want her to be lesser. And so it's this thing of, oh, I'm dragging women down because you're lesser than me, but also I don't want to elevate you in any sort of way. So you have to be lesser. So he's like getting kicked both ways.
Exactly. But then it's such a funny moment, because he's like, well, what women do you know that are like this? And he's like, I mean, I've got a sister. He's like, well, tell me about your sister. She's like, nope, cut off, hard cut. And then thank God she shows back up.
I'm done wrapping my ankle. But like you said, the levels make no sense, because they climbed the mountain and now they're on level 51.
Yeah. Like, what? Are you telling me you climbed 30 stories? No, because that's not how it actually works in this area.
Yeah. I love once again, cartoon comedy. A bunch of red ghosts show up at the top. And this one dude, this random ghost with a attitude problem. And now that I think about it, I don't know if he pops up after this, but he passes through Shishi and it's just his head shows up and he's talking to them. And it's like the cartoon comedy thrown in appropriately. I love it.
Well, and it gave me like Harry Potter vibes, right? Like when the ghosts walk through somebody and they're like, oh, that obviously had an effect on you. And I do, yeah, I like it because we're interacting with the environment. That's, again, something that we didn't, if we're comparing it to Beauty and the Beast, right? We really only got the parts of the animated creatures and then the West Wing. You didn't get a lot of description of some of the other stuff or other interactions with the environment, but we get so much great detail about the environment in this one. And I really like it.
Yes. So this is when she learns that this sword is different because they're about to attack them, but then the sword is all glowy.
That was great.
And then Mulan calls for her ancestors. They just show up, this Deus Ex Machina right here. 3 of her family members show up from the Fa family. So they're basically like, hey, this is ours. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
And then the bandits are like, oh man.
Oh, dang.
Spoiled again. Completely works. You just leave. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yep. Dang it. These are our people. We need the tea. And I love that also so much. Of the currency down here is gossip. And they're like, tell us what's happening. Your family hasn't died in a while and we don't know what's going on. I'm like, what? It was such a weird turn, but I loved it.
I could see it absolutely. And I love it.
Yeah.
But not only do they show up and they're like, hey, bandits, go away. They know a shortcut.
Mm-hmm. A shortcut, as we find out.
Ugh.
Quotation marks.
So they show her a portal in a hill that's supposed to take her to level 97, which is the highest level ghosts can go, which makes me wonder what's in level 98 and 99. Maybe all those advisors you brought up. And this is where they explain the color system, where it's like red, you're really bad and going to spend time in DU forever. And so you're eventually trying to get to blue, which means you can either be reincarnated or go to heaven. So they make it to the 97th level, which is the Hall of the Echoing Forest. And then they're told if they ever run into any problems to follow the moonlight, because this whole time they're able to see a moon in the sky no matter where they are. And that's how they're tracking the time.
Yeah.
Based on a shadow that comes over the moon, because apparently it doesn't rise or set because it's always moon time. But as they're about to leave, one of them's like, oh, and be careful about the cull. And then one of them cuts them off and it's like, oh, don't worry about it. It was a torture chamber that used to exist on this route. It's not here anymore.
Yeah, super sketch. And I love how they set that up the entire time. They are all like, who the heck is Ping? We don't know this person. Why aren't you in the books? But then also they're all being sketchy on their end, which again, like you get the resolution to later. But it's that we all are obviously lying. So let's just agree that we're not going to tell each other why we're all lying right now. Vibe, that you get in some films. And I loved it.
Basically, we have come to an understanding. But yeah, they straight up, they're like, are you a demon? Are you a trickster of some sort? And this is my heart moment. Shang stands up and is like, shit. Because Ping.
Yeah.
But they're not a demon. They're the best. Stop it.
Yeah, I trust this man with my life.
Yeah. And Mulan gets warm fuzzies and it's just like, he's just being friendly.
Yeah, come on.
But at the same time, a little part of me was like, plot twist. He's actually gay for Ping, and so he gets really excited when Ping's a girl.
But that's the funny thing about even the movie Mulan in general, and that's what a lot of people have said, is this man obviously had feelings, and then he was just relieved to find out that she was a woman and not a man, because he couldn't handle the fact that he had these feelings for another man.
Yeah.
That was there with the movie too, so I like that they imported that to the book too.
You got some bi vibes going on, my friend. That's kind of also where I was in that conversation when it was like, hey, Ping, I like you. Tell me about your sister.
Please tell me there's a female version of you.
Exactly. It's just like, But also Mulan being like, oh, he's just being friendly.
Yeah, okay.
Both of y'all. Okay.
So much denial.
So they give directions and go off. Shang starts acting weird because even though he was like, I chose to ruin my life, Shang's kind of like, but why is your name not showing up in the book?
Yeah, and I did like that because it's thinking through all of the plot holes, right? So like the dad, Captain Lee, gives her the information that he needs to allow Ping to convince Shang to give up his ability to be reincarnated and come back to life, right? Cool. But I was also like, but how does he know it's her? Because he did ask her, how do I know it's you? And they really cut past that really fast. And so I like that they reintroduced the doubt where it's like, oh, wait, this could be somebody just messing with me and trying to sidetrack me this entire time. This might not actually be the person that I trust. So I'm so glad they actually worked through all of that again.
Yeah, because he's like, look me in the eye right now and tell me that you're actually Ping, the son of your parents.
Yep.
And she's probably about to crack, but she shows up and does a really good job of protecting Mulan and basically being like, it doesn't matter because her actions, even though she thinks she's a man at this point, their actions have shown that they're a true friend.
Yes.
But Mulan is wrestling with it internally, and that's when she decides to reveal anyway that she's a woman. And I really like how it was handled because it was Mulan really grappling with the fact that she's been lying to him this entire time and doesn't feel like she's worth his trust and is worried about dishonoring her family, but also a little bit about dying because, you know, capital punishment here.
Yeah, it's a very real threat.
And so at this point, Shang is like, I never want to see you ever again. And she tries to give him some wisdom and he's not doing with it. And so she just promises Mulan that he's going to convince him eventually. So they split up and don't split the party, guys.
Wait, this might just be, I looked over it. Did he say, I'll work on him? I thought it was he promised he'll get him out alive.
I don't know if it was at this point. I think he said, I'll work on it or something. I think you're right and I'll get him out alive. But I think he was kind of like, don't take it to heart too much. Anyway, so they're traveling alone. She finds 3 tunnels and she's about to go in one when a fox tells her, hey, you're going the wrong path. And Mulan immediately is sketched out because foxes in apparently Chinese lore as well are tricksters.
Yeah, all lore. Foxes are just sketch.
Yeah, American, Chinese, Japanese, all sketch. But to be fair, she does free the fox's tail from a boulder. And so the fox is like, oh, I'll repay you by showing you the right tunnel. And to me, I'm like, that seems like a fair trade.
Sure, yeah.
Later, you find out that that was a situation set up by the fox, but could have left the fox there. Kind spirit. And Mulan's like, oh, just give me directions. The fox is like, no, I'll show you.
I have to go this way anyway.
And she pulls out, I'm so sorry you feel so distressed. I feel bad that you feel bad. So let me take you to this beautiful garden. And it's an exact replica of her family's garden at her house. And then Ming Po is like, hey, I was the fox. And I was like, oh, dang it, swiper no swiping. So there's some conversation and Mulan does some tea smelling instead of drinking it. But apparently that's enough because now she's suddenly at a dinner with her family and like her family's there, her father, her mom, her grandma. And in this version, she didn't fail the matchmaking test and the war is over and they won without her father having to go to war. So the best ending before all the events happened. And so she's really getting pulled into this world that this is what happened because her father's so proud of her and her mother's happy and grandmother's cooking and it's great. Domestic harmony and bliss. And then Shang and Shishi show up and they're like, hun, what are you talking about? Because she's like, oh, my family in the garden. And they're like, concerned.
Yeah, it's raining up on them or something like that. And I will say, this is probably the biggest point in the book where I said, I wish she'd done that differently. I so wish that we could have seen the interaction between Shishi and Shang to where he changed his mind and obviously came back for her. I just wish we could have gotten that because it almost felt like, again, a plot device of now he's here to save the day because she's in danger by herself kind of thing. I wish we could have gotten that.
Yeah, some show don't tell right there.
Yeah.
But she really sticks with the third person limited and doesn't go back and forth between viewpoints like Liz has done in the past. So I do like how she does explain how he changed his mind.
Yeah, and that's fair, but
yeah, that would have been nice to be like, what exactly about it? But to be fair, maybe she would have done it bad. And so she was like, I'm not doing that.
Maybe, yeah.
But they show up and they basically help her out of this whole hallucination by Ming Po to be like, stay here forever. This woman's dedication to her job.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Sparkling. And Shang does realize, I think, in this moment that they're still friends, because I feel like she was like, okay, we can't split the party. You at least need to admit that. You're a captain. He's one of your soldiers. We can't do this. And so probably Shang was like a little begrudgingly like, fine. But he kind of shows up and this happens and he's like,
nope, you're my friend.
You're my friend. Fine. I'll be friends with a woman. And I kind of like how it's done because it's not like he's rescuing her, but it's kind of like he showed up and provided support and she was able to do it.
Yeah, it was you're obviously in a trance and I'm going to give you the grounding skills you need to get out of it. He didn't come in and defeat the person and break the spell. He was just giving her the detail and the information that she needed to remember and get herself back to reality so she could escape.
Yeah, and so I appreciate how that was handled because she's a capable person. There's no reason to make her not capable.
Totally.
So the team's back together and they have like a heart to heart and they go through the portal in the desert. And so they're suddenly on level 97. Well, the portal should take them to Yaodu.
That sounds right.
Which is a city of the dead where ghosts can live if they're good enough. So that's where it's supposed to take them. But there's a warning on top that's like, hey, this is a sketchy door. And Shishi's like, nah, onward.
Yep.
One of Shishi's great moments.
It's gonna be fine. Let's go anyway. Because I even think that Shang was like, no, this says do not pass. He's like, nah, it's gonna be fine.
So they go in there and they're suddenly at a volcano and the river of hopelessness is running. I had a little bit hard time because the river of hopelessness kind of runs through the air however it wants. So it was kind of curving and there were some descriptions of it. And I kind of lost my grounding when I was like, okay, where is this river? What is happening with it? But it kind of intersects into the volcano and then runs down the side.
Yeah.
And then on top is a black pillar reaching into the sky. And then of course, the door disappears. And it's like, I can't even be mad because the door literally tried to warn them. It was like, if you pass through this door, you can't come back this way, basically.
Yep.
It was so obvious. And so there's ash raining down from the sky, and specifically demon bones are littered everywhere, which is extra concerning because supposedly they can't die, but we got some demon bones hanging out. Okay, that's concerning.
Yeah, right? And they're like, wait, how are there bones?
And Shishi realizes way too late.
Yeah.
This lion realizes way too late that there's a fire demon. So I can't pronounce the fire demon's name. I'm just going to say that right now.
Do you have it written down?
Huoguai. Haogua? Haogway?
I think it was Haogway, yeah, or something like that, if I remember correctly from the Audible.
My dyslexic brain just won't let me, so I just called him the fire demon.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fire demon attacks. Mulan gets basically kidnapped, drops her at the summit, which very convenient. But that's when Mulan realizes that this is the cauldron that they were trying to warn her about. So she sees Shang and Shishi below, and the fire demon starts attacking her. But Shang pulls a Legend of Zelda and shoots for the eyeball, manages to hurt it. So it focuses his attention on them. So Shang is safe because he's a ghost and apparently can't be killed by it because, you know, already dead. But Shishi is not, and so concerned. And once again, Mulan is like, oh no, how could this get any worse? And you know how it could get worse? Demons. Again.
Yep. More demons.
This is where the part, because I was like, I wonder what demon she would become. Would she be one of Yama's? Would she be one of Ming Po's? Would she be one of this fire demons? Because there is a rank here.
I guess maybe I missed where he said specifically that she might become a demon. I just thought he said that he would basically be his prisoner forever, which I guess you could imply as a demon. But yeah, I think it would be one of Yama's because it was the deal that they made.
Yeah. I was just like, how does work? given out here. How do you choose where they go?
Yeah.
What unions do they have here? So Shishi at this point gives a vague clue about use the sword, magic. And so Mulan recites the verse on the sword, and that didn't cause anything to happen. I was like, okay, that's fair. Good try.
Yeah, that was good.
Good answer. Clap, clap, Family Feud. Instead, she thinks about how much she wants to protect her friends, and that seems to work. So it starts to glow and is blinding all the demons, and she learns that this is the Sword of the Blazing Sun, which is actually a very cool name.
Yes.
And so it's a sword of the demigod who forced the demons into Dayu. Apparently demons used to be all around the earth, and then this demigod forced them to just be in the underworld. So this is the point where she kind of lets her two worlds collide, and she's like, I need to fight as a woman, as myself, and not just as Ping pretending to be a man. And I love the line, because it's song reference. I love them.
Yes.
I am the coursing river, the raging fire. I am the warrior. Such a good song.
Yes. It's such a good reference.
I was a little sad we didn't have I am mysterious as the other side of the moon, but she fights off the demons, and Shang and Shishi are fighting the fire demon on the quote-unquote correct side where the black pillar is, and so she's like on the opposite side of this volcano thing, and she's kind of like, no, go ahead, which I'm like, I can't really leave Dayu without you. So she pole vaults over the river, because like I said, the river cascades into the mountain at an angle, I think. Anyway, she gets across, but they need to get the demon away from the pillar, and so they get him into the water with a lot of wing tearing.
It's effective.
Yeah. And Shang figures out how to fly. Yay for him.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come in, because right before, they're like, but you can't fly, remember? And he's like, I'll figure something out. I'm like, yeah, he's going to learn how to fly.
Oh, heck yeah. And so he saves her. She's about to hit the water with the beast in a sacrifice way, and so he grabs her. But then the pole that he's using snaps in two before she can get to safety.
Yep, so they use the sword.
And then she pulls a, you can't grab me, because she doesn't belong in Dayu, but you can grab my sword.
Yep.
And so she holds her swords up, and he grabs it, and I'm like,
okay.
Does that not hurt? I have ghost physics questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. If he was grabbing the blade of the sword, though, it probably wouldn't have, because he can't be hurt.
Yeah.
So she was probably holding the hilt. But yeah, like I said earlier, that kind of brought back the, oh, okay, well, that's convenient. I did like the sword. I thought the sword was really cool. It was very much of like, oh, the power of friendship.
Yes.
Okay, well, but it works.
So they get through this area and they go to Yaodu, which is a really cool place. I wish we kind of spent a little bit more time in it. It's very cool. I wish we spent a little bit more time, but immediately they hone in that they need to go to the Chamber of Mirrors.
Yeah.
So they can get to the level
100th, yeah.
You have to pass some sort of test.
Like they haven't already many, many times.
Yeah. They also run into the ghost that was like, oh, don't worry about the cauldron. And they completely call him out.
Yep.
They figured out that he's gambling. It's not surprising.
Yeah.
Because he's a monk. And it's like, why is a monk at Dayu? You should go straight to heaven. Well, he has a gambling problem.
Yeah.
And apparently ghosts can't go to heaven if they have a gambling debt owed.
Yeah, unpaid debts. And I'm like, what?
It doesn't matter if it's in real life, but not in the afterlife. Anyway.
Yeah.
So he owes someone money, and granted, good on him for betting on family. He bet that they could defeat the fire demon, and works, and so he gets out of debt, because apparently a lot of people are betting on them. So I can at least appreciate that he thought Mulan would do it, but if they didn't do the challenge, they wouldn't have done it. So that's why he was trying to be sketchy. And so they're basically like, wow. Rin has no shame whatsoever.
No, not at all.
A little shame when they find out that he did it, but not in doing it. So Rin's the one who shows him to the Chamber of Mirrors, which is set in an antique store. And I just have so many questions. I want to see more of the city, but alas.
Again, I need this to be an animated movie, please.
It's so good. This scene specifically was so well done.
Yeah, this was wild.
Because they convinced him to let her do the trials, and only Mulan could do the trials for some reason, now that I think about about it. But first thing she does is she's in this basically a hall of mirrors. So yeah, chamber of mirrors. Her father shows up in the mirror and he's like, I'm disappointed in you. And all the things in her heart she's worried about her dad saying come out.
Yeah, which I mean, you could kind of tell it's a mirror trial. So you're going to end up seeing those alter selves, alter egos. This is where we get back to the reflection. Everything that you hate about yourself or you're scared of is going to be reflected back at you.
And of course, I love it because, you know, reflection.
Yes.
The song and the title of this book. So I love that the climax is her handling this chamber of mirrors.
Yep.
So she tries to banish her worry about it and be like, I'm cool with it, but she doesn't manage it. And then the mom shows up to twist the knife. And so she's trying to fight it. And a part of me was like, does she need to fight it and be like, I don't care? Or does she just need to make peace with it and be like, he could think that of me, but I still am at peace about it?
Yeah. And it's hard. This is a really great mirroring or reflection, to be very tongue in cheek, of what fighting your inner demons is like, and honestly, what therapy is like and kind of thing, because you can sit and worry all day long about these outcomes, but it is like you just have to come to this place of just accepting that this is a possibility that could happen in your life, and no amount of worrying about it is going to change that potential outcome.
Yeah. So the neighbors suddenly pop up and kids are throwing withered flowers, and her last name means flower, so symbolism.
Yep.
Then it's Shang and her army friends being like, we hate you because you're a girl. And then this Shang, which Mulan has a hard time figuring out if it's the real Shang or not, because it starts out as whatever, but then he appears as a ghost. And he's like, only one of us can leave Dayu alive. And suddenly the mirrors start attacking her.
Yeah.
And that's nuts. But Mulan manages to get to the upper hand, and she gets to the point where she's given the choice to kill Shang or die herself. And she chooses to let Shang live. She's like, no, we'll both do this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill you here. And so she passes the first test. And then the next one is she has to choose her true reflection. And so there's a bunch of hers all over. Oh, Mulan the soldier, Mulan the daughter, different ones. And they all have a little soliloquy about who she is. And she ends up choosing the mirror she's standing on, because she looks at all of them and takes it in, but she looks at the one below her and it seems to be a true reflection of who she is. So she picks that one, and a staircase opens up below her, leading her upwards because, you know, magic. And she appears in the bamboo forest during the day, which worried me.
Yeah.
Because this whole time, the little sliver of moon is disappearing more and more.
Yeah, you're waiting for it to become daytime. Yeah.
And the bamboo forest is not on the 100th level. I was like, no!
Yeah.
But no, apparently she did it. Yay! She did it. She did it.
Yeah.
Bellissimo. We did it.
A little bit. She's got to do this now. I guess this wasn't a challenge, but it was a really good resolution.
Yes. So she runs into Ming Po in her true form as a beautiful and royally dressed young woman. And she's like, you have won. You have done the thing. Very proud.
I'm not going to try to make you forget anymore.
Yeah. And so she heals her and gives her better armor for meeting King Yama. She can't keep it.
Which that made me think she was going to have to fight King Yama. Like, oh, she gave me a better armor. And I'm like, wait, are we going to do one last boss battle? Like, are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh. I always thought it was for appearances, but that would have been nuts.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's fair too. No, I immediately went to like, why does she need battle for King Yama? Are we about to fight this fool?
I love it. And she reveals that she is the demigod that owned the sword, which I'm not terribly surprised of, because I always noted how demigod/hero never had pronouns.
Oh, yeah, when the ghosts and everything talked about it, they just used demigod or hero.
I noticed that. I was always suspicious. I'm like, I would not be surprised if it was a woman. I was surprised to learn that it was Ming Po, though.
Yes, agreed.
So, once again, employee of the month for every month. She's got it. She's good.
Yeah, she does.
So Mulan returns the sword to Ming Po because it was originally her, and Ming Po gives her a magnolia blossom in return. It's very sweet because, you know, flower.
Yep.
Yay. So Mulan is reunited with her friends.
And now all of a sudden King Yama is super sweet, and I'm so glad that you got through my test.
Yeah, he's so happy, but he's like, is Ming Po mad at me?
Yeah, right. This could go really bad.
I didn't tell her. It felt like a husband doing a thing and then realizing that his wife will will find out about it. And he's like, oh no, I didn't tell her. I didn't ask her permission to do this.
Yep.
But anyway, he's like, is she mad at me? And so they have to be like, no, she's not mad. She's totally fine. And he's like, oh, okay, good. And so he crosses out Shang's name in his book, Dead People. And so they're good. The ancestors show up to give their parting. Rin, he's out of debt, so he can finally be reincarnated. And he's like, I'm going to live a better life next time. And Shang Fathers appears so Shang can have a proper goodbye, because that was one of the things he was upset about. He was like, I never got to see my father.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. And he also tells Mulan that he would be really proud to have a daughter like her. And I was just like,
yeah, I did really like that.
That's so sweet.
That got me a little bit, because like at least she gets some fathers saying that he's proud of her.
And I mean, we know in the end her father's very proud of her.
Yeah.
They're able to leave. She gives a formal goodbye, but also kind of a wink wink nudge nudge. Maybe we'll see each other in the future.
That was so great. Because you're right. He totally ships this.
He ships it so hard.
I mean, I won't be able to see you if you're not part of the Lee family, but if you ever decide to join, and Shang's like, no, shut up. We'll see you. Bye.
Shut up.
That was so good.
Yeah, I loved it. And it's like, it just so happened.
Yeah.
Which I think makes the whole tying their ancestors together, which they do in the movie, because I feel like it's implied that the rest of the movie is still going to happen.
I agree.
So it makes the whole tying their ancestors together instead of Mulan just taking on his ancestors even better, because she gets Mushu and Shishi.
Totally.
He ships it so hard. I love it.
He does. But then also Shang, I was so worried that we weren't going to get that little bit of resolution, but he finally realized, like you said, it was a little bit of a Titanic moment. He's just like, I would be a fool to let a girl like you go or something, or like a girl like that go or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I love it.
I love the slow burn. It's so good. This is how the enemy is the lovers, right? It's so good.
Yeah, in the total context, you're right. Because in the beginning, they were very much adversaries against each other.
It's good.
Yeah.
So they cross the bridge, which there was a huge bridge to get into Dayu. They cross the bridge, they get separated, and Mulan wakes up in the tent and she's freaking out because she's like, holy crap, I'm really worried that was all a dream, except she finds the flower that Ming Po gave her in her pocket, and she's like, oh,
okay, maybe not.
Maybe it wasn't. And then Shang's wound is no longer infected and it's starting to scar. And she's like, oh goodness, thank heaven. And when he first wakes up, he doesn't seem to remember Dayu, but a little later he does stuff and he's like, so I had this really weird dream. And she's like, oh yeah? What was your dream about?
Yeah, he remembered. I just imagine the rest of the movie that happens, right? Because they don't have the time alone until after the battle with the Huns. Can you imagine this trek into the city when they are obviously super attracted to each other at this point, but they cannot be in a relationship or something like that? She was like, oh, I've got to jog back up to the group to have a valid excuse for why I'm blushing and why I'm all red in the face.
Yes.
Imagining the shenanigans of them having to hide their relationship from everybody later. Hilarious.
I am curious how it kind of separates, because the reason Mulan figures out the Huns are going to attack the palace is because they're like, you don't get to march in the parade.
That's true.
So I'm kind of curious how that happens. Maybe that got slowed down because of the cut and they were able to figure stuff out. But anyway, it's still implied that the rest of the movie happens, which is very cool.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm so happy. The little secretary dude, scribe, whatever, I hate his face, is shocked. It's like, oh my gosh. And Shang is like, hey, so I heard you tried to leave me behind to die. Demotion, demotion, demotion.
It was very good.
But the soldiers are happy and it's great, and they're heading toward the city, and I love it.
It was a very good ending.
So much happiness. General thoughts on this? I loved getting to learn more about the Chinese afterlife because I knew nothing going into this, and now I know a lot more.
Yeah.
That's always exciting. I like that fantasy spaces are being opened up more and more to other cultures beside just Arthurian legend, because I feel like you get to experience the fun, tingly bits of fantasy. When I was really young, it'd be like, oh, elves and dragons, so mysterious and fantastical. But now I'm like,
yeah,
elf, dragon,
yeah,
swords and stones. We've heard it all before. So it's really fun to have something new and to feel the fantasy tingles again.
I really enjoyed all of it.
It's so good. Love it. I love this new author. She's very good. I want to read her original works. I do think it's interesting that the formatting isn't consistent because Liz always wrote chapter titles instead of chapter numbers, but this one straight up is just like, nah, numbers. So the editor is like, whatever. It doesn't have to be consistent.
Just take them out.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But I did think that was interesting.
I'm okay with that.
I also noted that this is the first book without a bitter ending that needed an epilogue to smooth things out.
Agreed. That was interesting because she wrapped it up, and exactly like you said, she comes from the understanding, when the divergence is going to be. You don't need all this extra stuff. I can just say that this is the end and you don't need to see the Huns and all that.
Because I feel like if Liz had written it, it would have been in that same pattern of the ending is actually really bittersweet and not a happy ending. And then she would need that epilogue to be like, oh, but it's not all bad.
Exactly.
But this one was just like, nah, happy ending, resolution, let's go. We're done. No epilogue.
It worked. We're done.
So that was new.
Whether or not it's accurate, having the Eastern storytelling and the Eastern mythology is just really neat. And the different levels of the underworld. And again, like I liked how it wasn't necessarily like a straight line. Like not everything was a straight line. That was pretty cool. I just think that she did overall a much better job. Like we even said, even when it came down to writing the fight scenes, they were just so much better.
The fight scenes were so much better. That's another reason I'm glad Liz didn't write this.
So much better.
That's not her strong point.
Yeah. And Mulan had anxiety, but she wasn't whiny.
Yeah.
Which I felt like all the other female characters were. It was really hard to balance out, well, what's going to happen? And having that understandable worry with I'm being whiny.
At no point did Mulan suddenly need to cry. Looking at you, Belle.
I think she did cry a couple times. She talked about how she got misty-eyed.
Yeah, but I have to cry because something bad happened. Oh my god, let's cry. I would have been so upset if that was Mulan.
Yeah, especially Mulan.
One question for the author. How in the world does this woman have time to write her own books?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you to speak a little bit to what is some of the other stuff she's written. What are the other
fantasy books, surprise to no one, that are based in Chinese culture? The one specifically I have, say, Six Crimson Cranes, which came out in 2021. I think that was the start of a new series. She has two series right now. One, her Six Crimson Crane duology, which I'm looking very forward to. Then she has her Radiant Curse, which I don't know if it's a standalone. And then she has another duology, the Blood of Stars duology, which looks really cool. All of them seem to have a female protagonist on the cover. And then she has her 3 Twisted Tale books, and then she's part of the anthology.
Okay, that's neat. Okay, I pulled up her website. I'm just going to read. This is her about section. It's pretty brief. I love this woman. I want to meet her. Elizabeth grew up on a hearty staple of fairy tales, myths, and songs. Her passion for storytelling began around age 10 when she started writing fanfics for Sailor Moon, Sweet Valley, and Star Wars and posted them online for people to discover. Wow, they actually read my stuff. That's kind of cool. But after one of her teachers told her she had, quote, too much voice, unquote, in her essays, Elizabeth took a break from creative writing to focus on not flunking English. Over the years, Elizabeth became a film and video game composer and even went so far as to get a doctorate in music composition. But she always missed writing, and she turned to penning stories when she needed a breather from grad school. One day she decided to write and finish a novel for kicks at first, and then she became serious and hasn't looked back since. She's graduated from Harvard College with an AB in music and a secondary in Eastern Asian Studies, and she completed her graduate degrees at the Juilliard School. This woman is fantastic.
I love it. So yeah, that's my question for the author.
It's a valid question, especially because she obviously just picked up on some of this stuff recently, like in the last 4 years. Yeah, those other books sound good. I might have to get those too.
Yeah, her publishing schedule is nuts. So many books.
But hey, I mean, she's producing quality content, so I'm here for it.
I know, that's the most impressive part of this. She's publishing 2 to 3 books a year. And granted, we've only read this one, and this was her first one.
That's fair.
But I'm going to read her original stuff. I'm very excited about it.
Was Shang your Disney crush, man? Because he was so many people's Disney crush.
Ooh, that's a good question.
He's a great character. Always has been.
Rating. I'd give this Coming Back to Life out of 10. This series needed new life breathed into it. It needed it so bad. You could tell she was so burnt out in the last book. And if it had kept going as it was, I don't think the series would have done very well.
Yeah.
To the point where they're publishing twice a year again.
Yeah.
Heaven help our schedule.
We'll be fine. We'll catch up with them.
Somehow. I'm very excited. We did it. Good job. I'm excited for your next ones.
Yeah. My rating would be stuffed lion plushie out of 10.
Oh my gosh, it's needed. They needed to come up with an animated movie of this just so they can sell the plushies.
Please do. Yes.
She merch. She merch.
It's just such a good little shishi. He sounds cute, but he's this big, terrifying lion. And he's a different lion than like Simba lion, right? Like he's that Eastern culture lion, which I want to see.
No, I could totally see the curly mane that they do in the drawing of lions.
Well, they mentioned at one point that he has braids and stuff because like that's what she used to do the tying. And I'm like, yes, give me a braided lion's mane.
Let's do this. Needed, necessary, wanted. Would you read this again? Heck yeah. I like this. I actually want to own this one. I'm looking at stores to be like, can I buy this, please?
Yes, already recommended it to somebody. So I'm glad that I own this in both Kindle and Audible.
Favorite in the series so far? This one?
Yes, 100% this one.
Yeah, I have started checking them out. I got really lucky because I bought Sleeping Beauty, which I don't mind. But now that I look at it based on this one, I'm like, oh, it could have been a lot better. But it's good. Check it out. If you like Mulan, you'll probably like this book.
Yep. Good fantasy.
Is very good. Action adventure. For realsies.
Like you said, refreshing. And I really needed that at this point. We're like 4 books in, finally, and it feels worth it.
Yeah, I don't know how we would have made it through. What are we at? 20 books? If all of them were written by Liz Braswell.
There really are a lot.
But have you read this book? Have you read any of the original work by these authors? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring reflection with us. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.